Joe, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Okay.
Better than I was, and yeah, I'm very excited to get this new album out into the world, which is what we have been working on for the last 2 years of our lives, and it's been a bit of a roller coaster, I would say, the 2 years, but yeah, I think I'm feeling very well. Everyone else is here. We're navigating as best we can the world as it is at the moment, which is tricky.
Sure.
But yeah, we're all here, I think, which is good.
Excellent. Well, let's go back a couple of years then, because I last spoke to you, I think it was at a festival here in the Netherlands. So I'm going to start off from where we left off a little bit.
Nice.
Because everything was going well, the band was doing well, second album had come out, was received well. What is the intention then moving forward towards this third record?
What was the intention?
Yeah, before, like,
pre-accident.
Yeah, exactly. Before craziness, kind of.
I mean, the intention was to do what we're doing now, except that we weren't planning on the chaos that was in the middle. Right. The plan was to finish touring How to Be a Human Being and get to all of the places that we hadn't managed to get the first year round. So the summer 2018, which is when I had my accident, we were using that summer to get to some places that we hadn't got to yet, because obviously you can only be in one place at one time. You miss parts of the world and festivals and shows and interviews in other parts of the world because you can only do one. So we were trying in the second summer, which is 2018, to do those and to get to those places, with the intention of finishing at the end of that year and probably having a bit of a break, because that would have been 4 years worth of touring, because Zabba happened. Well, the gap between Zabba and How to Be a Human Being was very short. It was months, 3 or 4 months, and then we were straight back on the road again. So the turnover was fast and we hadn't really had a break. So I think probably we would have had a break, probably not the kind of break that we did have. But that was the intention, was to be here, absolutely. But yeah.
And then, like you say, and I hear this a lot from bands who've been on the road for multiple years in a row, they kind of need that break. But then in your case, it's kind of a forced break. And one in which you pretty much only can, I suppose, focus on survival. So at that, I don't know how much of the band you were of the people of the band you were talking with, but what was the status of the band when your accident happened, and what was kind of the feeling of will this ever happen again, playing together? And
that question. Yeah. There was absolutely that question. I mean, when the accident happened, in the aftermath of it, that people were asking questions about again, speak again, think again. You know, I was having very serious operations on my brain, and no doctor could give any assurances that I would be okay and that I would recover. So I think there were periods of time where the band were very seriously questioning whether that would happen again. I mean, I was certainly questioning whether, even in the aftermath of it, in the sort of months that followed, I had no idea whether I'd be able to play music again, make music again, communicate properly. I mean, I literally couldn't speak or walk or read, really think for myself at the beginning. So the idea that I would be here now 2 years later was fanciful, I think. that definitely put a different spin on the headspace that the band was in when we started making the new album. And I think it certainly coloured the headspace that Dave was in when he was writing the lyrics. And it changed the way that he was thinking about his life, and all of the things that had happened, not just what had happened to me, but all of the things that had happened in his life. Because I think when something like that happens, and actually weirdly, something that sort of in a way mirrored the experience that we had, the headspace that Dave was in, has been it's been mirrored in the experience that the whole world has had recently, which is that no one really knows what is going on. No one knows when the end will be. No one knows what the end will be. So when you're in a headspace like that, it starts to be much easier and more peaceful sometimes to look backwards. And I have noticed, I don't know if you have, that lots of people have been listening to old music and watching old TV shows and watching old films and eating recipes that they used to eat and remembering holidays that they used to go on, because actually at times like that, it's really cathartic, I think, to remember things and to cling on to things that were real and tangible, rather than looking into the future and not knowing. So I think Dave was certainly in a headspace like that when he started to write Dreamland. And in a very weird, warped way, I think this feels like an incredibly appropriate time to be releasing a record that's about nostalgia. Because I think there are a lot more people right now than there were 6 months ago who are feeling similar things about their youth and like, how did we get here and why? And like, I remember when I was young and everything was so easy and peaceful and carefree, and equally, look what we've all gone through. Like, look at the formative times that have made me, that have got me here now. So I think weirdly there's been some sort of mirroring of the place that we were 2 years ago, that the world is sort of in a similar headspace now.
What were the memories for you that, because obviously for you it's even I think more intense in a way, or it has been more intense because it's a directly life-threatening thing that happened to you. So what were the memories or the kind of the things that stood out to you at that time that were important to you? Because like you say, you start to reflect and you say, okay, what is important to me in my life? Why am I doing what I'm doing? And all that kind of stuff. What were the thoughts that kind of came up?
It's a very interesting question. I mean, lots of things. I think when you are forced into a position where fundamental things that make you are taken away, and I didn't even realize the things that made me. Really, I'd never had to think about it, but like the way that you express yourself, the way that I express myself, suddenly had been taken away from me, and I realized that that was a fundamental part of who I was, the way that I was able to express frustration or sadness or happiness or, longing or pain. As soon as those things are taken away from you, you realize that when people are trying to fill in sentences or words for you in sentences because they think they know what you're trying to say, and you're just like, absolutely not, that's not what I'm trying to say. Please stop helping me, because that's not how I feel, even though that's what you think I feel. Like those tiny like fragments of a relationship or a moment like that really make you realize the importance of things that we all, and I, took for granted every day of my life. I think that was a huge thing that I realized, that like having the ability to speak and write and read, all of those things. But I think actually more importantly than than all of those things was the way that I was forced to think about my relationship with people. When the chips are down, sometimes you find out more about the people around you than you do when the going is good. When the going is good, everyone's happy. Everyone's happy to jump on board and have a great time. And when the chips are down, you find out about people. And I found out that, I think if you'd asked me pre-accident, are the people around you good? Are your friends good? Are your band good people? And your family good? I would have said, yeah, definitely good. Like really good, nice people. Now I know, having been through that, how good, how great these people are. And in a really bizarre way, I think that I feel quite lucky to have experienced that, because that many people, I think, will get to the end of their lives and never have had to see the people around them from the inside out in that kind of environment, I guess. And if I could change everything, I would go back and have not been hit by that vehicle. But I think, given that I was, one of the things that I've come out with it feeling very strongly is that I'm so glad that I'm so lucky to have found myself in and amongst this group of humans, because the way I was looked after and the thought and care of all of my friends was like, and family, and like all of the people around me was like nothing I could have expected. I think that really was the thing that I came out with it, out of that experience, feeling most strongly.
And with that in mind, then, what was it like once? I don't know if there was maybe a first session again when you were able to move again, you were able to drum a little bit again. Was there a first session where it was just you and the band that got together and to kind of get back that feel that you once had?
Yeah, that absolutely was, and I was fucking terrified about it. And everything I'd been doing had been like building up to that moment. When you spend as much time doing something as we've done doing this band, it sort of becomes quite a defining part of who you are. I mean, I think anyone's profession is that. And when something that is that important to you, everything sort of begins to revolve around it. And all of my healing process in my head was sort of leading up to that moment of like, when we walk into the room together for the first time and sit down and start playing again, is this going to be like everyone's going to stand there and like listen to me doing that and at the end say, yeah, nice one, Joe, that was interesting, well done, we might have to work on a few things. And that, that was a terrifying prospect for me. And luckily that didn't happen. And it kind of, we were rusty. I was very rusty. It wasn't the best rehearsal we've ever had, but the way that they made me feel was, it was amazing. It was like a huge weight had lifted off me, and it was the first step in the sort of walk to try and find normality, whatever that means.
Right, because I can assume that, or I assume that you need to convince yourself of the fact that you can still do it as well. You need kind of that reminder. Well, okay, everything still works. It's not as where it was, but I can get there if I try it. So that must have been an interesting moment. And I don't know how the album, how far along in the development of the album you were at that point. Well, what were the songs already written in a sense, or did most of it happen after?
No, so the accident happened in the summer. And by the autumn, we were starting to sort of starting to write music. I mean, I was not, certainly not fully healed by then.
Right.
In fact, I mean, I don't know if I am now. I don't know if anyone ever, like returns to normal after something like that. But that was like very fresh. It was very fresh, and it was like slow. It was like a gentle beginning, which was really nice. And Dave had gone away, and as he does, kind of created this idea, and he had written the sort of bones of what is now Dreamland, the song, and had this idea that Dreamland was going to be the album. And he thought about the themes of the album, what it was going to be about, and what he wanted to sort of say and how he wanted to say it. And there were a few songs that were beginning to sort of appear. They appeared sort of somewhat like the songs that you hear now, and those are the songs that we started on and took away and worked on, and in 2s and 3s, and then we came back together, and that was the sort of beginning of it, was the autumn. So it was like 3 or 4 months probably after the accident.
And like you say, you start discussing these songs, the themes and everything. Were there, or maybe 1 or 2 songs that stuck out for you in particular as they were developing?
Yeah, I mean, they all. It's weird when you're this close to songs for as long as we were. You get very attached to all of them, but for quite different reasons, I think. But I can remember Dave playing me Dreamland, the chords of Dreamland, the beginning of the song. And I just, the whole thing sort of immediately made a lot of sense to me, because, he gave me the spiel first, the sort of, this is what I'm thinking, this is the plan. And then press play, and the opening chords of Dreamland happened, and I was like, shit, the door, it felt like these kind of, I don't know, the way I still imagine it is these doors are opening, and there's like fog and stuff pouring out the doors, and you're walking up these stairs to walk through the doors of Dreamland into this world that he created, and it was very immediately obvious to me that had to be the beginning of the album, and it ended up being the end as well. There's a sort of outro. There's the sort of, the doors open again and you can leave, and then they shut. But yeah, there are. I can remember Dave playing me the beginning of Your Love as well, which was just like this like funky little guitar loop. And it was literally just that. It was like a 13-second loop of Dave playing ding, 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 and it was just that. And I was like, that we need to work on. He had like he had a little file of about 15 tiny nuggets like that. And I was like, that is going to be a single, that we need to work on that. And it was just like, sometimes you just hear something, like it was just like an instantaneous moment of just like, that is going to go somewhere. So like I felt very excited about that. Heat Waves was there quite early, and like some of the songs happen, and like incredibly loud. Have you heard the album? Yeah. So like incredibly loud. Back.
No worries.
Okay, here we go. Sorry. Like incredibly loud. Was like quite a long process like that. We started that very early but didn't finish it until almost at the end, because we were just really desperately trying to sort of figure out how to it was sort of almost too big and too it was just, we couldn't get our hands around it or our head around it, and like trying to figure out the best way of it existing. We were trying to fit it into like a normal song structure, a traditional song structure, verse, chorus, and we're just like, this isn't made for that. That was not what this song was supposed to be. So kind of we had to sort of let it breathe in a way that we didn't have to do with Waterfalls, for example, which was just basically the demo. Dave just came to us and pressed play, and we were like, well, I mean, that's basically finished. And that happened on the last album a couple of times. Cane Sugar on the last album was essentially the demo. That the song that you have now was almost identical to the song that Dave sent us and played to us for the first time. And sometimes that happens. You throw so much stuff at it, but actually it just ends up being no better. So you go right back to the beginning. In fact, in Waterfalls, the only thing that changed was that middle eight, which is this weird kind of Spanish moment, which Ed ended up writing. But yeah, and like my relationship with that song is no better or worse than with Heat Waves or Your Love. And I know it's not about better or worse, but like I kind of love them equally, but for very different reasons. And and like when I listened to Your Love for the first time, it was such an exciting moment of like, this whole process is happening again, and I'm here, and I can't believe I'm here and doing this again. And that like excitement of what turned out to be the sort of lead single from the album so early on was like really exciting. But then Helium, which is the last song on the album, which I think is certainly the one that moves me the most. Okay. I find it really affecting. I think it tells a very beautiful story, and it takes you on a very weird journey. And it's not a traditional song structure. In fact, it's quite weird. It's quite like an anti-song structure. Hello. Yeah, and I think that like I love that song for that reason, because it's so different. But like those two songs, Your Love and Helium, to me are really quite different.
Sure.
But have like, I don't know, they like they really make me feel. Which is important.
Sorry for interrupting. Let me ask you in a slightly different way then. What because like you say, all the songs are quite different, and you as a band you've always made different music. And this might be a little vague, but what makes a good Glass Animal song then?
I mean, it depends who you're asking, I think. If you're asking the record label, it will be the one with the most streams. If you're asking someone who's taken loads of pingers at a nightclub, it will be the one that's fastest with the loudest kick drum. I think for me, it's the songs that make me feel. I think really for me, music is about an opportunity to like affect the way I feel, and it can make me want to dance, it can make me want to cry, it could make me want to think or to love, or like it doesn't have to be like a traditional love song. It can be anything as long as it makes me feel something. And I think on this album, this new record, Dreamland, Helium does that to me in a really affecting way. And my relationship with that song is very strong for that reason. Sure. But equally, like Space Ghost, which is so different to me, which is this like really hard kind of like unforgiving banger, equally makes me want to like puff out my chest and swagger down the street, which is a really fun feeling. So I think as long as a song makes me feel something, then it has value. And I think probably on this record, Helium is the one that really does that to me most. But that's not to say that the others don't.
No, of course. Final question then.
Yeah.
Because you obviously you had a break for a long time. Then I think you were able to play a couple of shows in January, right?
Yeah.
And then all of the strangeness of what's happening now happened. So again, an extended period of not playing and being at home. The second time around, are you enjoying it? Do you kind of like, or is it one of those things where you can't wait to go play again?
I mean, I feel like I'm quite well qualified at like being slow at the moment, or life being slow. But I feel very frustrated, really, that we put so much effort, time, blood, sweat, and tears into like getting the ball rolling at the beginning of this year. Everything was in place. Everything was sort of, all of our ducks were in a row. We had the end, the goal was in sight. Everything was there, and we just pressed go, and we'd all got our heads into that space, which is touring and album and live shows, out of the studio, which is quite a different headspace. And we were going, and then suddenly all the brakes were slammed on, and that is I'm sure it was this exact same for many other people in many other walks of life, but that was a really tantalizing, frustrating thing, having been away for so long, to come back and finally feel like we were hitting the ground running, and then for it to disappear in a puff of COVID was a frustrating end. But we've had to think about a new way of presenting a record, and we've had to reevaluate the way that we present this record to the world now. And I honestly think that we've ended up having to do things which I really believe will give this album a more interesting life. And I really hope the world returns to normal soon, so we can give it the sort of traditional start to an album. Sure. That I would love to be able to give it. But even now, I feel like so many good things have happened. The videos that Dave's made, the quarantine covers he's been doing.
Dreamland TV.
The Dreamland TV, exactly. That was an amazing day. And the open source website, the remixes that people are doing, the way that they're playing with art. It's like, it's really forced us to think about how the fans and the people who are listening can engage with this, because they can't see it in real life anymore. But like, maybe they can get into the album through a different door, a different avenue, and how best to do that, we're still exploring. But I think we wouldn't have done half of those things if it hadn't happened. So I think from that perspective, again, it's like, there are sometimes weird silver linings to these very horrible, desperate times that happen. And I think really those are the things that you have to focus your energy on if you want to make the best out of them that you can. So that's what we've been trying to do.
I completely agree. Joe, thank you very much for your time.
Not at all. It's lovely to speak to you.
You too. And I hope you get to play again soon.
Yeah, me too.
Because are you done with Netflix now? You've seen everything?
Yeah, I'm so done with Netflix. The Tiger King was the beginning and the end for me.
Fair enough. But yeah, hopefully we get to play and we get to go to shows again. And luckily, you've, like I said, I think you with the open source stuff and everything that I like the retro aesthetics of the website and the video and stuff. So I think there's like say good things coming out of it.
I hope so. That's very kind. Thank you very much. I hope we can see each other soon at a festival.
Yeah, hopefully we can do this at some point in person again. Hopefully. All right.
Wicked. I look forward to it.
All right. Thank you very much.